Okay, I told you one of the biggest problems in America today is American consumerism. Well, there's a second problem under that. As you consume so much, guess what? You accumulate debt. And debt ultimately becomes probably the #1 issue today in American households, Christian or not Christian, doesn't matter. You're all in the same boat. And this is the biggest thing that's holding back a lot of people from investing, saving, tithing, giving at high levels. It's this right here, debt. They're just completely struggling with this. So part of my practice focus a lot in this department for sure. And there's different ways to approach debt. Again, the traditional way is this: budget, cut off, reduce, whatever you recapture. There's one main popular strategy that exists, and that's called debt snowball. Everyone in here has probably heard of debt snowball before, and you're simply taking the smallest balance of your debts. You're lining up your debts from smallest to greatest, and you're going to pay the smallest one first, all the way up to the largest one until you're completely debt free. Everyone pretty much knows that. Please comment if you don't know debt avalanche. Some people don't, and that's cool if you don't. Cash flow index, velocity banking, and infinite banking. These are three not as popular financial strategies that more wealthy people use more often. And what I've been doing the last 7 years is bringing this to everyday W-2 workers that I work with. So for the most part, I work with a lot of W-2 people who are not business owners, never ran a business in their life, and maybe they have a desire to, but again, the debt, cost of living is holding them back quite a bit. So comment if you have not heard of any one of these strategies, like which one. Never heard of velocity, never heard of infinite, never heard of cash flow index. Please comment while I erase this side of the board to give me some more space here. So Lauren says, haven't heard of the debt avalanche or infinite banking. Cool, so that is a first. Gotcha, beautiful. What else? Never heard of any of these. Okay, wonderful. You're in the right place. About to get exposed to some really cool financial strategies that will absolutely put so much money back in your pocket. Insane, and you don't have to pay anybody. That's what's even cooler. Don't have to pay a dime for any of this, but it will cost you time. It will require patience and discipline. So these are the parameters. Key things: patience, time, discipline. Key areas: patience, time, and discipline. You got to be patient, because what I will expose to you, you're going to get really excited. And what I've seen people do on my YouTube channel, they get so excited, they think they know after watching a 20-30 minute video, one or two of them. They go off, they try to do it, and they mess themselves up. Again, they bought a gun loaded. They didn't go to the gun range. They weren't taught how to load it and how to clean it and all this stuff, and they shot themselves in the foot. Okay? And that really hurts. Okay? So, patience. Time. I tell people, moving forward, should you decide to spend additional time with me, you're going to want to set aside an hour to 2 hours if you decide to watch any one of my videos, especially my long form videos. I will literally go for an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe even longer on some of my videos, because I'm giving every single detail. I'm not some guru online with a 5, 10, 12-minute clip, not to undermine anybody, but that's just not how we learn. That's just not how you're gonna learn. There's really well-designed edited videos where you can shorten it and then you pause and whatnot. But you'll notice my style is very slow, very patient, because I'm giving you time while I'm talking to process it, and I'm pausing, and then we keep going. Now, obviously, you can hit the pause button if you're like, hold on, go back, rewind, that sort of thing. But the other reason is I have been called by my Father in heaven to serve mothers, single moms, divorced moms, widows, moms in general. So there's by no mistake that the vast majority of people in here are women. It's by no mistake. I'm a 29-year-old Puerto Rican, Colombian individual. For whatever reason, God said, I need you to go serve moms. This was at 23 years old, 22 years old. He spoke this over my life. My first client was my mom, that I started serving and helping on her finances. And then he was like, keep doing it. I was like, well, how? And then that's when I found the right people in my environment that said, YouTube, marketing, here's what you're gonna do, how's you gonna do it, blah, blah, blah. Boom, made the YouTube channel, started making videos all day, every day. I'm talking to moms that are going through divorces, moms that have never touched money before for the most part, that are, you know, married with a spouse and maybe the spouse handled most of the money and then spouse either passed away and now boom, fell on mom's lap, or maybe there was a divorce or a separation or a job loss or an injury, traumatic injury. There's so many situations where it's not necessarily a poor habits situation. Sometimes it's just genuinely like, I didn't know what I didn't know about money. And then boom, this event occurred. And here I am now seeking out the information and they find this guy here. So that's how I work with a lot of the people. So the time part, extremely important. When I'm working with moms, they're willing to take the time for the most part and sit and watch and be patient. And then the last is discipline. What I've discovered about discipline in the last year, I heard, I don't know who it was, I don't know if I was out at an event or a video, but everybody has discipline. A lot of us think we don't have discipline, but you actually do. It's just a matter of where your discipline is being applied. So if somebody tells me, Denzel, I'm not disciplined with my money, that's not true. You actually are. You're just very disciplined at not spending time with your money and making decisions without a process, without a financial framework. So you're very disciplined, mom, dad, at not watching videos, not going to financial classes, not investing your time, money, and patience in money conversations, and you're spending it in the opposite direction. So you're extremely disciplined. So it's not that you lack discipline, you have it, you're just using it in the wrong direction. When I discovered that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's so good. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. It's like, no, everybody in here has discipline. It's just a matter of where you apply it. Some of us are very good in our health area. Some of us are very good with our family. Some of us are very good in money. Some of us are very good in our faith. It's just a matter of where you apply it. So I thought that was really cool. Just want to share that with you. So patience, time, and discipline is the parameters when working with me. So let's go one by one. I'll skip over debt snowball since everybody knows that for the most part. No, actually, one person did say I have not heard any of these. So debt snowball is lining up all of your debts on a sheet of paper, lowest balance to highest. And the idea is you're picturing a snowball, a small snowball rolling down a mountain, and it's picking up more and more snow and it snowballs, right? So that's what's happening with your debt. Let's say you got 500 bucks a month in cash flow, maybe less than that. You're trying to pay off 10 debts. You line it up lowest to greatest. You take that 500 on top of the monthly payment, pay off one debt. Debt number two takes the original payment from debt number one plus your 500 plus the payment on debt number two, and you're going to go faster and faster and faster. This strategy focuses on this is more of a mindset strategy. This is not necessarily not rooted in math. It completely ignores interest rates, completely ignores amortization schedules, completely ignores if maybe you have a debt that's at 0%, no cost to borrow. So it's not necessarily rooted in math, but it's still a good strategy. Debt avalanche focuses on highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. So you actually would line your debts up instead of balance, low to high, you line up those debts of yours from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. For the most part, it's credit cards first, then it's like student loans, car loans, personal loans, then it's a mortgage, right? That's usually how it looks for a lot of folks because credit cards are usually at the highest rates, and then it's personal loans, things like that. Now, this is math, rooted in math, because it's literally looking at the cost of money with each debt. And it's saying whoever is charging the most amount of interest, if you can get rid of that, you're going to pay off debt faster than debt snowball. And I would argue most of the time that is the case. That is true. But life is not necessarily built on a spreadsheet. So although debt avalanche may show a faster result, guess what? Now inject the human. Once you inject the human into that strategy, it's a different ballgame. If you have a person that has patience, time, and discipline, they're going to do great with debt avalanche. If you have a person that lacks patience, time, discipline, they are going to have a high failure rate with debt avalanche, and they would be better off with debt snowball. So debt snowball, think of it as a pregame. It's like pregame work. It's a great place to start. But again, like I said earlier, you don't end there. You don't end there. So now, cash flow index. This is interesting. Here's the formula for cash flow index. Balance owed divided by the monthly payment equals a cash flow index score. Okay? Balance owed divided by monthly payment. Let's use an example. Let's say you have a $10,000 car debt and the monthly payment is $400. So you take the balance divided by the monthly payment, $400, you get a score. That number is 25. If the number is less than 50, then that is a inefficient debt that we want to pay off. Say, for example, you have a $300,000 mortgage and you divide that by $2,000, let's say, as your mortgage payment. Notice how the score is more than 50. So less than 50 is inefficient. In other words, pay it off. And you would go from least cash flow score to highest cash flow score up until you get to 50. Once the number is more than 50, this is a efficient debt, meaning you actually don't accelerate that debt. You actually leave it on your books. You leave it on your balance sheet. Now, as believers, depending on your school of thought and certain scriptures that this gets debated back and forth about how believers ought to handle debt, okay? Is there good debt? Is there bad debt arguments, right? We've heard that argued in the church, amongst the internet, amongst believers over and over again. Where I have personally landed, and I'm still a young buck in terms of my faith, right? I'm only 29 years old. So I've been on the earth that long. Based on my observation, depending on which denomination of Christianity and who I'm hanging out with, what I've been relying on as a foundation, if I'm talking to somebody that's in debt and they're contemplating whether they should pay off their debt first or invest their money first to earn more and then pay off all the debt, they're contemplating between that. I'm like, what does the Father say to that situation? What is have you consulted with the Father yet? What is he saying over your life? If God is telling you, directly you, not the world, not the internet and all that stuff, and not what math says, if God is telling you, get out of debt, listen, my hands are tied because I yield to the Father. I'm like, the Father said, get out of debt, we got to get out of debt. Even if it means foregoing the opportunity to make more money over here if you just buy Bitcoin. Make sense? Where I'm going to get in alignment with the Father. If the Father says pay off debt, we got to pay off debt. Now it's just a matter of how we go about doing that. The Father says pay off debt. How do we go about doing that? Depending on the type of person I'm talking to, again, if they display patience, time, and discipline, then maybe we could implement a strategy that says, okay, we're going to pay off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 debts, get that cash flow, put it toward your business now, grow your revenue, grow that income, come back, take that increase of income, pay off debt 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've done that before with clients. Others, it's we are dialed in. We're going to pay off debt. We're not investing. We're going to have a little money off in savings, emergency fund for unexpected stuff. But any and all cash flow we're making is dedicated toward paying off debt. So from what I've observed, it's a bit of a gray area in terms of how Christians and how believers ought to operate their debt. And what I have leaned on is the Father. I'm like, God, what are you instructing this individual that you have me coaching? So even I will pray over your family and over your life for guidance. Like Holy Spirit is guiding me in every single one of my coaching calls. So it's not just me and some math problems and some strategies. It's like, well, if the Father is telling me something, I'm gonna share that, and I'd like you to also pray on it so that there's a three-way conversation going on. It's the two of us gathered, and we have Holy Spirit to give us the proper guidance as to which strategy we're gonna implement. And yes, there's an element of what does the math say and what yields the best results, sure. But I also want to solidify it with what's the Father telling us. If the Father's like, yeah, go for it. Let's have fun. So coming back to cash flow index, the idea is you're only paying off certain debts. And then, for example, like a mortgage, you would actually keep that debt on your books because it would be inefficient to pay it off too early, according to cash flow index. So what do you do with that information? Well, the debts that are efficient to keep on the balance is potentially revealing that, hey, maybe instead of paying off that 2.5% mortgage that you got back in 2022, and interest rates are much higher today, and inflation is much higher than 2.5%, you could literally stick the money that you were going to stick in the mortgage as an extra payment, and you can put that in a high yield savings account right now and earn 3.5%, 4% without doing any work. So you ask yourself, well, should I pay down 2.5% or earn 4 or earn 5 or earn 6 over here with my money? And that's a conversation I have. So again, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to reveal to you the options on the table and get you to have full confidence under each strategy. Look at your patience, time, and discipline. Match everything up, pray over it, solidify, submit the plans to the Father, wait for guidance, confirm it, and then hold you accountable the whole way through. Does that sound fun? Let me know in the comments. If something like that, it sounds fun. That sounds fun to me. So, moving along, we have velocity banking. This goes by many names: debt acceleration, mortgage acceleration, paycheck parking. What are some other names? Accelerated banking, accelerated strategies, accelerated payoff. Keyword is velocity. What is velocity? Velocity is speed and direction at which something is moving in. In this case, we're talking about money. So most of our money works like this. Everybody in here makes money some way, shape, or form. It then lands in a checking account. Then you pay bills and debts for the most part. So money lands, your W-2 paycheck, your business revenue, sits in the checking account, idle, earning nothing. Then money gets siphoned out to pay bills and expenses, debts, tithes, offerings, givings, etc., right? So all expenses. And then the money that's left over in that checking account, does what? Probably pay more bills, debts, and expenses. And for some, you save and you invest it. So money for everyone is going in a linear path. Linear. It's just going straight. Here's what velocity banking does. It flips the script on how your money moves. And we're going to create a flow of money. We're going to create a river flow of money. Instead of money landing parked, waiting, parked, pay bills, waiting to see what's left over, waiting to make a decision to save and invest. It's going to flip the script completely. So income lands. I'm going to draw this triangle. This is the famous triangle I've written on my, drawn on my channel a bunch of times, and this arguably has made me pretty popular over the years. This idea also came from the Father. So income lands, same way, in the checking account. Then immediately, before it pays any bills or expenses, that money's going to land. It's going to go into another account. That account is going to be called a line of credit, a properly structured line of credit with the right banking institution. And I have tons of videos that break down what that means. For now, I just want you to stay with me. Don't get lost in this. Just think of another account outside of the checking account. When your money comes into your checking account is going to go to zero. And the idea is to keep your checking account at zero for as long as humanly possible. So you're wondering, well, Denzel, where'd all my money go? It went over here into the line of credit. Now, in this line of credit, what's happening is You are consolidating debt or leveraging debt for income. It's one or the other. Could be both at the same time. In this context, let's just focus on paying off debt in this context. So what would happen is you have a line of credit issued by the bank, and what a line of credit pretty much is capital, additional capital. So you're going to leverage OPM, other people's money, in this case, the bank's capital that they gave you based on your credit, and you're going to take money out of the line of credit to pay off debts or pay down debts. So what's happening is you're moving debts and expenses into this line of credit. So now you owe money in the line of credit. The line of credit functions just like a checking account. When that happens, you now owe money on the line of credit. Income comes into the checking, and immediately you transfer money into the line of credit. What happens is you dramatically reduce your cost of money. Then what happens? Because you paid down debts or paid off debts, you create cash flow. So as you're paying off debts using capital, you're using your income to pay back your capital. And then the final step, it kind of happens simultaneously, but you're going to move money back out of the line of credit, back to the checking account. Checking account pays your bills and expenses. So we let the checking account be a function of expense. That's it. But a checking account is not where you hold money. And so what's happening is you're holding all of your income. Imagine instead of operating with $500 a month of cash flow to pay your debts off, what if you had your whole $10,000 of income that you could use to pay off your debt, and yet use the money twice to pay your bills and expenses? That's what velocity banking does. And I've got hundreds of case studies on that, but that gives you the general idea of what's happening is instead of going in a straight line with your money, we're doing this. We're creating a flow because money has to flow. Money has to flow. If money is not flowing, it is dying and it is leaving your economy to go flow with someone else. Hence the word cash flow. Cash flow is the number one thing that we're all pretty much after as it relates to our money. We want to have more money than bills at the end of the month, don't we all? Why? So that we can glorify our Father in heaven, so we can see his faithful stewards are the people with 5 and 2 talents, not the dude with 1 talent. This is the dude with 1 talent. When money is linear, dong, 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 it's not doing, it's dying. You're not fully utilizing the skill of money flow. So money flow produces velocity, velocity produces cash flow. Cash flow produces glorification, let's say, of our Father in heaven, or as a mechanism, a tool that we as believers can use to advance the kingdom of God here on earth, to occupy positions of authority here on earth until he returns. Yes? Agree? Yes? No? Let me know. If you think I'm totally off, again, I'm very new in my faith, so I could be saying something wrong. And I love to be corrected, because when I get corrected at this age, it's much better than trying to correct me when I'm 59, right? Because, you get a little more stubborn the older we get, from what I've observed other seniors, right? So that's velocity. Just the idea is you are leveraging debt to pay off debt, or leveraging debt to create more cash flow, reducing your cost of money in the process, and creating a flow using all of your production income to speed up the flow at which money moves in your economy. It's a wonderful strategy, but requires patience, time, and discipline. This could have the potential to ruin somebody's finances, because if you don't know what you don't know, if you don't know what you're doing, you think you know what you're doing, you can potentially hurt yourself, financially speaking. What do I mean by that? Well, what if you got the wrong tool from the bank? You think you're doing velocity and you're actually paying more money. That's like one of the primary reasons people mess themselves up, is get the wrong tool. So my channel is dedicated to helping people use the right tool. Lots of videos on that. Finally, we have infinite banking. Infinite banking also has a lot of marketing terms. You might hear become your own banker. You might hear bank on yourself, tax-free banking, accelerated banking, cash flow hacking. Uh, did I say bank on yourself? There's so many names that this thing has. What it's predominantly referring to is using a whole life insurance product, whole life insurance that is properly structured. Out of curiosity, is there anybody in here that owns a whole life that you think is properly structured and with a mutually held company that has been in business for 100+ years? Out of curiosity, does anybody own a whole life insurance product that's properly structured with a mutually held company? Just out of curiosity, let me know in the comments. So the premise of infinite banking is a process, kind of like velocity banking is a process, and it's teaching a framework, a mindset. What infinite banking is teaching is essentially how you in your household can operate like a banking institution. Very similar to a banking institution. You begin to learn what banks do to create more money and how you can mimic that on a very small scale in your household using properly structured whole life insurance. So that's the premise of infinite banking. And there's many other definitions to it, but that is a healthy start, I believe, if you're going to go down that journey. There's a lot of things that you can do with a properly structured whole life insurance product with a mutually held company. Mutually held means that they're not on the stock market. The only owners are the policy owners, you and I, and then owner of the company. And so when the company makes money, you make money in your whole life product in the form of dividends. And those dividends, you earn money tax free. So there are some key components. I'm going to erase this a little bit. Some key components to a properly structured whole life insurance contract. When set up and used properly, you get some guarantees. You get a guaranteed death benefit. You get living benefits. You get guaranteed growth. You get tax-free growth. You get liquidity, safety. These are the key elements. Guaranteed death benefit, guaranteed living benefits, guaranteed growth via cash value, guaranteed tax-free liquidity. So I'm able to use the money that's growing in this cash value. And I get safety because of the guarantees that the insurance company is providing as a contract that I'm making with a life insurance company. So the safety comes from the contract and the position of the life insurance company, the regulation of our government and the way that goes into it, and the way that the life insurance company has to have funds. So for every dollar that this life insurance company has in death benefit, so if they have $1 of death benefit coverage on Denzel, they have to have $1.03, let's say, in a reserve account to pay out my death benefit claim at any time. So if I die at any point in time, they're able to tap into their reserve account if they needed to, and there'd be more than enough money in there to cover my death benefit claim and everybody else that is insured. That's called risk pooling. The insurance company charges a premium. So this is a product that costs money that you pay, and in exchange, you're getting a larger death benefit than what you're paying for. The third component is you're getting this cash value. What is cash value? Cash value, think of it as like a savings account with no FDIC limit. So you can have as much money, depending on what you get insured for and how it's designed. You can contribute a lot of money. There's no like Roth limitation or 401k limitation like other retirement accounts. This is not a retirement account and this is not an investment. This is a protection asset vehicle that protects not just your life, but also can protect your investment portfolio, your overall money. So that cash value, think of it as like a savings account. At any given time, you'll have about 90% access to the cash value. Why 90%, Denzel, and why not 100? Well, the reason behind that goes back to the guarantees and how you can lend yourself money. So they have to have a certain amount of that cash value inside of the policy to also protect the customer from creating a lapse event. That's one of those reasons. And it's also proper stewardship. Like if you had $10,000 in a savings account, are you going to take out 100% of your savings and go make an investment? Would that be wise? No, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? So you're going to want to only borrow a portion of your savings, say $6,000. You're going to hold on to $4,000 in your savings. You'll go make the investment with the six, and if it doesn't work out, you still have $4,000. So that's called, hedging. It's like, okay, I'm going to keep some money in cash. I'm going to invest the rest, take a risk, try to make more money. But if something goes south, well, I still have money over here. And so the insurance companies have created rules in that sense, and every company is slightly different. But for the most part, you have about a 90% liquidity when it comes to the cash value. Okay, so what does this have to do with paying off debt, Denzel? Well, let's go into that. Let's talk about that a little bit. So here's what people have done, will do, have continued to do in the past and even in the present today, is they will purchase the properly structured whole life insurance contract. Let me create some space for myself, like this. So here's what very, very, very wealthy people do. One of the wealthiest families are the Rockefellers. So the Rockefellers use whole life insurance as an underlying foundational asset to preserve wealth for multiple generations, and they've proven it for at least 6 or 7 generations, if I'm not mistaken. So how does this pertain to debt? What they do, what people will do, is they first save a certain amount of money, and they contribute that money to the whole life insurance contract. From there, as I mentioned earlier, they have that death benefit, but then there's also this cash value component. How much cash value is in there, they borrow against the cash value. So here's what's happening. The insurance company will lend, say 50,000, we'll use that example. They'll lend 50,000. The insurance company gives 50,000 of their money. Let's say I have 100,000 in cash value. So my cash value is at $100,000, and I'm going to take a loan out for 50. The insurance company gives me their 50K, and they keep my 100 as collateral. They don't touch that. And let's say the insurance company is going to charge me 5% to borrow my own money. Denzel, that's kind of weird. Why would I borrow from myself? Well, let's see if it makes sense. In a year, if I were to borrow $50,000 at 5%, it'll cost me $2,500 of interest. Meanwhile, let's say your $100,000 is growing in the cash value uninterrupted at 4%. What's 100,000 times 4%? 4,000 bucks. So at the end of 1 year, my cash value would have grown, to $104,000 cash value, uninterrupted. Meanwhile, I lent 50K out. I borrowed against the cash value at 50,000 at 5%. I'm going to pay $2,500. So what is my net gain? $1,500 net gain. That's just one part of the story. The question is, what did you do with the 50K? Well, let's say you wanted to pay off debt. So you took this 50K and let's just say you consolidated debt. Let's say you had a 10% debt at $50,000, right? Let's just say. Oh, we got someone on, if you can come off mute. Okay, let me do that. I got you. Okay, so if you had $50,000 of debt at an average interest cost of 10%, what's that costing you in a year, let's just say, depending on what type of debt it is? If it's simple interest, it'll be $5,000. So if you had the 50,000 in cash in a bank account and you send that 50,000 towards your debt and you pay off $50,000 of debt, what happens? You save $5,000 of interest cost, but you also no longer have that $50,000 in your savings account. Does that make sense? That's gone. So how do you recover that 50K? Well, you would start saving money again, right? You would start building up that money again. And if that 50 grand was sitting in a high yield savings account earning, say, 4%, the minute you take 50 out, are you earning 4%? No, you are no longer earning 4% because you used the money to pay off debt. Versus with a whole life insurance contract, you borrowed $50,000, you paid 5% in interest cost in a year, let's say, $2,500. You save $5,000, yet you earned $4,000. Total gain, 9,000 minus 2,500. You have a net gain of $6,500. The difference here is leverage. That's one part of the story. You're leveraging, and the money that you're leveraging in one location still grows uninterrupted at a guaranteed growth rate plus dividends. Meanwhile, you use the money in a proper, efficient way. You want to make sure that whatever you do with the money, you're going to earn more than 5%. Even if you create a positive split over here on this side, you still want to make sure you're doing something smart with the money. Are you investing, or are you consolidating debt? So what a lot of people do with whole life insurance, once they've accumulated a good amount of money in there, is they begin to borrow in lump sums and they start to consolidate debts. And they park it in the whole life insurance as a loan with a cost attached to it, but the cost gets offset by the money gained and the interest saved. Does that make sense? That's more complicated. Notice how each strategy gets more and more and more complicated. So again, if you have these three elements, patience, time, and discipline, and you're willing to learn these things over time, what I do with people is I might meet you here. Let's say I'm talking to Lauren. I might meet Lauren here at Debt Snowball, but when I'm done with Lauren, maybe we're down here. Maybe it takes a year. Maybe it takes 2 years. Maybe it takes 3 years. I have been working with moms for as long as 7 years now. There's one client in particular that comes to mind. Her and I have been working together since, she's been following me since 2019. She became a client around 2021, early 2021. When I met her, she was operating out of a negative cash flow of multiple thousands of dollars, as high as $4,000 a month, running a negative. When I met her, she was 66 or 67 years old, if I'm not mistaken, retired, living off of a pension and Social Security. That was it. So she had a lot of money in savings, and she had a Roth, and she has a 401k and TSP. She had different stuff. She had 2 properties, but she was draining her savings account, that negative 3,000 a month, negative 2,000, negative 4,000. She was just draining it over time. Then we start working together. I met her where she was at. She had no knowledge of velocity, of infinite banking and cash flow index, debt avalanche. All she knew about was debt snowball. And that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to pay off debt, but like strategically, because she was like, well, I don't want to run out of money because I don't work. I'm retired, Denzel. I've worked all my life, and I'm in this situation. In the family situation, there's a lot going on. I won't go too deep into that. But there's a situation going on. We very strategically used financial products, strategies to turn around that whole paradigm that she was going through. It took till today, literally. No, I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I will look it up right now. Let me just look her up real quick. 2 days ago, 1 or 2 days ago. So we're talking a 3 to 4 year window from 2021 to 2025. She has been operating out of a negative cash flow, multiple thousands of dollars. And in some miraculous way, with God guiding the both of us, we've managed to extend her dollars over that period of time and put her in a positive cash flow today. It involved reallocating assets, restructuring debt, paying off certain debts. It was amazing. This whole process was incredible. Moving forward after today, she's going to be in a positive cash flow position. I want to say about $1,500 or more. Still retired, did not have to go work to make money. She had all the right tools. It just wasn't in the right place. So it was this massive jigsaw puzzle, one of those puzzles where it's just colors, not even a picture, like one of those. And little by little, every time I spoke to her, we were putting pieces together, mapping it out, mapping it out, mapping it out, mapping it out. I have this documented on my YouTube channel. And I have to make another video because now we're actually going to be moving in a positive cash flow position moving forward. Amazing stuff. So that's how I work with you. I meet you where you're at, but I don't keep you there. I'm going to expose you to wisdom, information that is going to change your life. And that can happen two ways. Either you just follow my YouTube channel and go video by video, step by step. I have playlists and it takes you to, chronological order. You can do it yourself. Doesn't cost you a dime. I'll appreciate a comment, a share, a like, a subscribe. I appreciate all of that. I appreciate a testimony, a Google review. That's beautiful. I always appreciate that because then it allows more people to get exposed to that wealth of information. And then the other way is people literally just hire me one-to-one and like, Denzel, let's go. One-to-one. Let's figure this out. Thea is an example of that. And many others. I help moms, women build wealthy kingdoms that will last forever, and to have authority over their finances by helping them pay off debt, increase cash flow, lower your expenses, build your credit, all using your own income.